Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Across the Lawn. Today I'm here with Rob Curley, the executive editor for the Spokesman Review, and we'll be asking him some questions. So first, Rob, can you tell us a little bit about the roles and responsibilities of being an editor for a newspaper?
Yeah, the editor kind of helps set the tone for what a newspaper's personality. It's just like how universities, when they hire a coach who they think could be great at academics or is great at offense or great at defense. Editors are like that too. We have different skills. So some are really good at enterprise stories or local photography or imagery. Well, my strength is community. When you hire me, you know that I'm going to get rid of all the national news on the front page and just make it about that town. So the editor helps set the tone and then make sure everybody stays with that focus.
Yeah. Did you know you always wanted to be an editor?
So I didn't know I always wanted to be an editor, but I've known since the third grade that I wanted to be a journalist. So it's one of those things I never wanted to be something cool like a fireman or anything. I always wanted to be the nerd. Yes, for the longest time, I never once had to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Nice. And then can you tell us a little bit about the problems that print news face, especially in such a digital world where news is so popular now?
So my background is digital. I started building newspaper websites in the 90s. So early on, I was one of those guys who could write sentences and code. And so I had a very different perspective than most editors. And so you worked at big, I was help at build the Washington Post website and those sorts of things. So I had a different perspective. And what you realize is it's really about the content, not the most important part of the word newspaper is news, not paper. So it's really about how do you get the content to people in the way they want it. Well, there's a certain amount of people who want it in paper. There's a certain amount who want it digitally. There's a certain amount who want it as alerts on an app. It's our job to be able to do that. The news of our death is a little premature. I mean, we have one of the largest audiences we've had in our history at this moment. Now, granted, there's a lot that you should want to know about the world at this moment because it's kind of crazy, but yeah. It's not about print or digital. It's about, do you have the right news and do you know how to get it to people?
Yeah. And do you have maybe a iconic or favorite headline from your time at the Spokesman?
So let's see. Before I was at the Spokesman, I was the editor of the Orange County Register, and I know you asked about the Spokesman, but look, no headline is going to touch this one. So there was a home that was filled with this person who kind of hoarded snakes, and most of them were dead.
Okay.
So it smelled awful, and it was it was animal cruelty. It was a really terrible story, but we couldn't help but put the headline "House of Slytherin" on there, and I'm never going to beat that. That's the headline that wins forever.
Yeah. What advice would you give to students who maybe want to go into journalism in the future or want to know more about journalism?
So a couple of interesting secrets here. So journalists know how to listen. They know how to process things quickly. They know how to write things quickly. For the longest time, the majority of CEOs in America were English majors. Why? That's so counterintuitive. It's because they could write. And that was mystical to everybody else. So we have this high school internship at the Spokesman Review, and very rarely are the people who are in it going to be in journalism. One of our students just graduated and already has an incredible job at Boeing. And he said, you always list that you worked at the newspaper first because they're going to ask you, what was that like? Because they're not expecting a 24-year-old to have that on their resume. And it says it lets me discuss that I know how to talk to people on the telephone. I know how to do these things. I know how to do research. I know how to do this. I know how to work quickly. And if you have that on your resume, even if you're an engineer, you're getting the job. Yeah. Because now they know that you know how to get things done. You know how to think for yourself. So the best way, start at your high school newspaper, and if you don't have one, make one.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about the internship you just mentioned?
Yes. So we have the only paid high school journalism internship in the nation, and it started off with 4 students, and then it went to 6, 8, and 10. And the idea here was that you would get really, really smart students who could write, and then you would teach them how that relates to journalism. But at the same time, you're bringing in the mayor, you're bringing in the CEOs of successful businesses, you're flying in Ann McClain from NASA, you're flying in the senators for the state of Washington from DC, because you also want them to learn what leadership looks like. You want them to know what it's like to be talking to people who have a lot of power, a lot of experiences, and we want them to understand that they're just normal people, but you have to understand how to talk to them. So it's kind of an 8-week crash course on how to be an adult.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
No, loved it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Colin Brennan, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Across the Lawn.